Hey friends, if you've been following along with this video series, you would have recently seen John the Baptist's testimony about Jesus. You would have also seen the testimony that the disciple Nathanael gives about who Jesus is. And then last, we saw what Jesus said about himself. And in tonight's video, we're going to see what the disciples said about Jesus during the Last Supper. But before we get there, if this is your first time here, I just want to personally welcome you to the HomeGrown Ministries YouTube channel. I'm DJ, and on this channel I strive to provide you with biblical wisdom and encouragement to strengthen your walk of faith. This video series is dedicated to my grandfather, who passed away in January of 2019. I've spent the last year going through his Bible, just talking about the different verses that he pointed out, whether through a sticky note or a highlight. And tonight's verses are in a very interesting place in the Gospel of John, because they're wedged in between the laundry list of things that Jesus tells his disciples before he heads to Calvary, and right before he prays for them, so right before he's leaving to go to Calvary. So several things that he tells his disciples before they make this statement, in the verse that we're going to look at, is he's providing them comfort. He says, guys, you trust in God, put your trust also in me. He promises them that they're going to receive the Holy Spirit in the future. He tells them that because they are disciples of Jesus, God is going to prune them like a gardener does to a vine. And because of that pruning, they're going to bear good fruit. And then last, he warns them that because they are his disciples, the world will hate them. And then after all of this, we come to the disciples' response. And so we're looking at John chapter 16, verses 30 and 31. Here is my grandfather's note with his handwriting. So that way you can take a look at that. I like to show you his handwriting because I think it honors him. So Jesus tells them all of these things, and here's how they respond in verse 30. They say, now we can see that you know all things, and that you do not even need to have anyone ask you questions. This makes us believe that you come from God. And Jesus responds by saying in verse 31, do you now believe? And so this is very interesting, because what you're seeing is the disciples hear all of this jargon from Jesus, and they give a churchy answer. It's like when you ask a child during Sunday school, who's always with you? You know, they know that they should say Jesus, whether or not they actually believe it. And I feel like that's what's going on here. The disciples are starting to get it. You know, they've been with Jesus for 3 years. He's been saying a lot of stuff in parables. He's starting to speak more clearly during the Last Supper, really trying to communicate to them. And they're finally starting to get it. But what you see here is they're not there yet. They still don't fully understand. And John, who is writing the Gospel of John, is a disciple. He's here in this room. And so his eyewitness account, he's telling you that we didn't get it. We didn't get it. Even when Jesus was speaking plainly, we didn't get it. And sometimes I think the reason for that is because God is so intelligent that when he communicates to us, it's like us as humans trying to communicate rocket science to a cockroach, right? There's things that are lost that we just can't grasp. I always say when I try to teach my children, so my son and my daughter, about different scientific things or different things that happen in the world, I have to communicate it in a way that might not make full sense to them. They're not going to grasp it in its entirety, but I'm going to do the best that I can to be clear. So one of the great examples I always give is, talking about the sunrise or the sunset. To help them understand, I say, oh, the sun's waking up and the sun's going to bed. Now, is the sun really waking up or is the sun really going to bed? No, but that's as good as I can explain it to their level to help them grasp it. So I think God does that with us, and Jesus was definitely doing that with the disciples. And you can see it's starting to click, but it's not there. And why this is so important is because I think all of us, well, I know all of us don't have perfect theology. Because the way God communicates to us, there's no way that any of us could fully grasp everything there is to know about God. And so because of that, none of us have perfect theology. Just like the disciples here, they say, this makes us believe that you came from God. They still don't quite grasp that Jesus is God yet. They don't really grasp that until after he's resurrected. And you see that. And so what we then see is Jesus' patience with them. He still loves them. He still cares for them. He's still patient with them. He still prays for them. He's still trying to teach them, even after he resurrects. When he comes to Thomas, doubting Thomas, he says, put your hands here. Put your hands in my side. Put your hands in my wrist. And see that I am who I am. And I am God, right? And what's Thomas's response? He says, my Lord and my God. So none of us have perfect theology, but God is patient with all of us. So I think even when we disagree as Christians, it's important to remember that. It's important to remember that our theology isn't perfect. And so we need to treat each other as Christians like God treats us, with patience, right? With love, with care. And I think Christians sometimes forget that. Our pride puffs us up, right? And we attack each other and say, no, I'm right about this aspect of theology. But we need to convince people with love, with patience, and with care, just as Jesus did with his disciples when he knew they got it wrong. He was patient with them. And so this continues, and this is where Jesus is. I love how this ends. Right before he prays, he says in verse 33, I have told you these things so that in me you may have peace. In this world you will have trouble, but take heart, I have overcome the world. He's telling them, I get it. I get that you don't understand right yet. But I'm telling you so that when you are persecuted, and when the world is dark because you see me crucified, you'll remember what I told you. You'll remember that you will see me again, and you will have peace because of what I told you. So take heart, Christian. Take heart. Jesus is saying that to you too. You're being told these things through this video so that you may have peace. In this world, as a Christian, you will have trouble. People will dislike you just for the fact that you serve Christ. But take heart, because Jesus has overcome the world. Friends, that's your encouraging message for the day. I hope you found value in it. If there's something you'd like to point out that you think's interesting that maybe I didn't touch on, let me know in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you. And Christian friends, please continue to be the salt of the earth. Be light to the world. Go encourage somebody else today because the world desperately, desperately needs it. And I'll see you in the next video. Bye.